Hello, my people. Welcome to the matter. My name is Utobasi Tom, and in today's edition, like you have seen, we are going to take a look at post-election, the youth's perspective. Since after 2023 general elections, that a lot of youths had agitated for a change in governance. We had so many young persons chanting obedience, so many young persons whose hopes were somewhat shattered because of the outcome, and one of which is my guest today. His name is Supreme. Supreme, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How you doing?
Thank you, I'm fine. See you again.
Okay, you fall under this category of persons that were disappointed after the elections.
Actually, I wasn't disappointed as a person, but the anticipated change in leadership that could basically transform the strata or different economic sectors in Nigeria for the betterment of the generality of all Nigerians. That hope was actually.
Okay, being an obedient, just give me an insight as to how did you feel after the election?
Actually, I would say disappointed because we were all actually being very, very much, optimistic
Okay.
that the outcomes of the election will be driven by the anticipated change that we are all chanting. But it didn't turn out that way to show that we hold Nigeria in high esteem. We really needed to play our role of allegiance by supporting the emerging government. So our hope was not totally, in vain. Our struggles, our contributions, our voice. In fact, I think to some extent, the other side of the Nigerians would actually feel that we, the youth, some of the youth that stood
Their grounds, right?
do you understand, actually, could make a meaningful contribution. Because that is a movement that was self-sponsored. There was no financial motivation coming from any sector to motivate people to contribute or to stand up for what they believe or to go out and vote. So you could see much activities and events that came up on their own in support of that movement. So for me, it is not a failure in totality, though we recorded some level of disappointment in regards to the modalities on how the elections was conducted, starting with the manual reporting, starting with the BVAS disappointment and all of that. It was a kind of system failure which actually truncates the hopes.
Okay. Let me take your
that
view.
believes that we could actually drive change in a different direction.
Okay. A lot of persons have said more than once that the last election was the freest, if there's any word like that, and fairest of elections that Nigeria has ever conducted. And that is from a standpoint that it gave every contestant an opportunity to be at the polls. That is why you had the most multi-party House members, Senate, and the House of Representatives. That's having people from different parties, and some political parties that were not even, did not even have a national structure, as the case may be, could emerge in some states, and exactly. So, would you or do you agree to this assertion?
For example, that assessment could have been done from a different angle. Like you rightly said, it gave room to multi-party participation at the grassroots level. When we were talking about state house of assembly, we talked about federal, and I think at the level of the governorship, there were other people that were actually it came up.
Okay.
The major hope of the majority of Nigerians who were actually anticipating making moves for this change were at the center of the governance, which is the presidency. So when you look at it from the standpoint of the presidency, and then you begin to ask some question that borders on accountability, transparency. You understand? And then when you begin to ask those questions, you see some indices that tilted towards the direction that it was not free as it is claimed or assumed. Be that as it may. And if somebody is saying it was free and fair, from which of the statistics? Because you must use statistics. And from which of the institutions that is giving this credit? And if they are giving credit, and from what point, what statistics did they use? But from personal observation, you understand, away from the grassroots politics that we are actually, given room for emancipation of a popular candidate could emerge from minority parties or unpopular parties.
Okay.
Let's focus on where the generality of the hopes of the people we focused on, which was the presidential election.
All right. Now, I want to drive this conversation down to you as a person and to you as an individual who was actually a part of the obedient movement who actually anticipated a change in governance. What has been your mindset after the election? Let's look at what's been your mindset. Has there been any change in your ideology as to living in Nigeria or being a Nigerian? Has it changed your lifestyle in any way? Has it changed your would I say your hustle spirit?
For example, now I have actually been a very self-reliant and independent person. Now, beyond motivation, I see Nigeria as a gift. God gave it to me and gave me to Nigeria. So there is no doubt about who I am and where I come from. The only resolve that I have made after the election is to make things better. This time around, not in a wasteful venture, in a meaningful venture this time around. For example, I've been indulging in political analysis over the years. We talk, we make contributions, though we may not actually add or pull weight at the moment, but I believe subsequently joining voices together would actually, create a path with time. But I have resolved to look for meaningful ventures where I can actually end in a meaningful.
So are you now saying that talking politics, analyzing politics, examining the policies of government is a wasteful venture?
No, I wouldn't say wasteful venture in
Okay.
that regard. I said personally.
Okay.
I said I've decided to
Okay, you consider it wasteful to you
No.
at the time.
I said I have decided to reshape the list of my involvement in some
Okay.
things
Okay.
that are wasteful. I didn't mention political correctness.
Okay.
So I reshape my involvement in many things
Okay.
that are wasteful ventures that will not actually bring economic benefit.
Okay.
Because when you look at Nigeria, you will always match a certain political theory that borders, it is called system theory. You understand? So you can never beat the system because the system produce what they want and direct the things they want the way they want. So what do you do? If you cannot join the system, create your own system. You may not be able to create a political system. You can create your own economic system. If you're not an entrepreneur as of yesterday, you can decide to become one. If you're not a sole proprietor as of yesterday, you can decide to start one. You can venture into one and see how it will be. By so doing, even if you've been able to create a job, a venture that will absorb 2-3 employees, I think you have added to the number of employed citizens in Nigeria. And as such, we are creating a meaningful ventures instead of talking every day.
I think it could have been, or it was a lot easier for you because you were already into some meaningful ventures that fetched you money. But there are some persons who may not be financially buoyant to pick up such meaningful ventures like becoming a sole proprietor of a company or an enterprise, or either even becoming or setting up a business, an SME. So they were relying to a large extent on the system. On government policies.
It would be wrong to rely 100% on a system that is not based on the demands of the citizens. But rather, the system theory shows that the outcome of the government policy starts and ends with the demands of the citizens. You understand? But in a situation whereby the demands of the citizen is totally regarded, rather, elite theory is being put into practice, whereby the people that are opportune to be in the government whether they have what to offer or not, whether they're technocrats or not, whether they have the real technical know-how to run the office or various offices in government or not, are actually the people that the size of the shoes of the governance. And then they drive the policy from the standpoint of the benefit of the people who are the political actors, and then play down on the needs, the basic, the core needs of the society. Then what will you do? Will you wait for them to attend? Will you keep going to the radio video to talk and wait until they come and tie the road? Will you go? There are certain areas that have stayed for 3 years, no lights. Will you stay for them and wait for them until 5 years after before they come and restore the light? That's when you begin your ventures. No. When you talk, they know, not that they don't know. We know the problem of Nigeria. You understand? The problem of Nigeria is not mostly economic development or political will. It is the problem of the hearts.
So when you say problem of the heart, is that not lack of willpower?
It could be described as lack of willpower, but every political willpower begins with strong morals. Do you desire to see your people live a good life?
But we've been fortunate, especially in this climate, to have persons coming from a religious background who supposedly had good morals man the affairs of our state.
Religious background is not a yardstick of more strong morality. Strong morality is life exemplified. How do you live? And how do you consider the welfare of the downtrodden? How do you believe in self-development? For example, China is not a Christian country, but they believe in the development of their citizens. In various sectors, super sectors like tech, computer engineering, computer science.
Yeah.
That's a leading sector as long as this generation is concerned.
Exactly.
To what extent? Look at the Bone Science Park in Akwa Ibom State. That would have been a major sector to contribute to the development of science and technology in Nigeria and Africa at large. And such a project till today has not been mentioned as a key project in Akwa Ibom State. And then you want me to believe that whatever project that they're projecting is for the well-being of people. Any man that is truly spiritual will understand that the dealing of God with man in this generation is technologically driven. And every meaningful society and government make a meaningful, investment in that direction. To what extent are we developing? Building a worship center? I wouldn't totally condemn it, but ask yourself a question. What is the economic benefits? Even if that you claim that it is a spiritual center, to what impact? Show me the yardstick of measurement. To what extent will that impact on the economy?
Prayers will be offered to God, and God, when God receives the prayers and the praises of His people, He sends down blessings, and that's the blessings we are expecting.
The Bible portion is clear. A time shall come when you shall no longer go to Jerusalem, neither shall you go to the temple. Underlined, temple. The day that shall worship God shall worship in spirit and in truth. It is for mind to be elevated. You understand? Paul and Silas prayed in the prison and God answered. Were they in the temple? Understand? So these are the things that we need to give priorities. No God, underline, no God will prefer the building of temple without feeding the people. You understand? So these are the things that we need to put into consideration. Lee Kuan Yew, the Prime Minister of Singapore, was returning from a trip and he passed through a school when he saw the student trooping out of the school. At the closing time, he parked his car and he wept. He said, these people are actively going to school and energetically trooping out of school at the closing time with hope that when they finish, there will be a meaningful job for them to do. He knew that there was no job. He told the driver to park his car, he wept. After weeping, he returned to airports and then he traveled back to America to go search for opportunities, investors to come and invest in Singapore. That was one of the most thriving events that could happen to him as a person because of the content of his heart. Knowing that these people are energetically involving in academic exercise, hoping that when they acquire this knowledge, that there will be an opportunity for them to earn a meaningful life. That alone drives him to create a meaningful ventures for them to want to have a meaningful life.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, at large, I wouldn't, whether there is ethnicity or religious division, I wouldn't look at it. But I will look at it as a whole. To what extent do we desire to people living a meaningful life? So at that point, you see that poverty is being weaponized to keep the people at the downtrodden and give them palliative in form of a day's income. They understand, and then begin to have them fight over it, and then begin to get their votes because of that little motivation, and then subject them to that kind of servitude and animalistic kind of life. When a man becomes helpless because he does not have a meaningful means of saving or raising his family or providing for his family, he became a bait.
This, let me come in there. This had been the reason the young people in Nigeria en masse came out willingly, voluntarily they volunteered to actually, back up Peter Obi's ambition to candidacy to become the president. And as God will have it, luckily or unluckily, the results were out. The winner was a winner emerged, and President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is already the president, and undoubtedly so, because the Supreme Court has validated his win, his candidacy, and of course, he remains the president as elected. What is the position of the obedience now going forward politically? You've talked about how they should, diversify and try to get themselves economically empowered. That being said, like I mentioned, a lot of people depended on government, which drive us to our last conversation. Not everybody would or have the opportunity to actually, emancipate or drive economic empowerment self by himself. You get. Then, in what way? For those people who are still dependent of government, and coming from your own perspective, that you say government might not actually be, sincere in its purpose of emancipating the people from economic hardship. What is the mindset that a typical young person should put on?
As the name implies, obedience. We are obedient. How? When the Supreme Court finally validated the candidacy of President
Ahmed Bola Tinubu,
we queued up because we owe the country allegiance. As the name implies, obedience. We are totally obedient and law-abiding citizens. So we now know that, let's assume this is the popular will or demand of the people. We've come to a conclusion of that segment. Now, there is no division among us.
What's the reality now?
We are no more talking about political parties, we are talking about Nigeria. We are no more talking about elections, we are talking about governance. So it is left for the people who have actually emerged as the winners in different political offices to actually have this mindset that we are no longer talking about political parties, we are talking about governance. Government should be inclusive, irrespective of who voted or who didn't vote you. A race is a race. When a winner is emerged, then everybody consolidates. So now we've consolidated, we've now given him our citizenship support to rule Nigeria for the betterment of Nigerians. And it is left for him now to sit down and either do divide and rule or govern the people the right way. By what I mean by divide and rule, by saying these people didn't support me, no project, or these people supported me, project.
Okay.
Or I have now emerged. Thank you for the competition that gave me the strength to emerge as the winning of president of Nigeria.
How would you rate his takeoff? You can't really assess his government based on these few months, but how would you rate the takeoff of President Tinubu?
The takeoff was like, the takeoff is turbulent and it's still turbulent. Even you, without me rating it, go back to your household, you feel it.
No, he did.
You understand? So the takeoff is not even something to like say, because it's all about the policies written on paper. It's about, if you are talking about mobile phone subsidy, for example, I think to show a calculated move, you understand, you would have put SOCO in place. You would have made sure that 3 refineries at most
are up and running.
And the refined product for us to see first and even supply before the removal of fuel subsidy would have been put into consideration.
So that being said, what's your projection? Do you see the government making headway anytime soon?
I see the government making headway. The whole Nigerians, the governance is ruled from the heart, not from the brain.
From the heart,
Not from the brain.
not from the brain.
Yes. For now, they're ruling Nigerians from the head. From the head means that you are in intellectual competition to run, outsmart, impoverish, and put down one another. So, and the actual benefits that should belong to the people is not the core priority. So everybody carries their sense, and sense has to do with head. Heart deals with empathy. So until
But he had this empathic slogan that drives his campaign all through. Let the poor breathe.
there is difference between talk and action. To what his body posture, his policies and actions, to what extent is it promoting that? Let the poor breathe. Are we breathing with the fuel of 750 naira a liter? Are we breathing with 3 cups of Gary 500 naira? To what? Because I am using the lowest indices to measure the government. This is where the poor belongs to. Gary is a normal, like you said, Eba. You understand?
Yeah, wow.
Now, to what extent is this Eba affordable for the poor? How much is 1 liter of kerosene? Kerosene is even more expensive than the motor spirits. And where does the poor belong to? Does the poor belong to the category that, buy kerosene or petrol? If they buy kerosene, now, to what extent is kerosene affordable? And to what extent are we supporting the livelihood of the downtrodden? So these are the self-assessed questions, without sentiment, without listening to radio, without hearing a hearsay. So understand, so these are the things you feel daily. You go to the market and price kerosene, and if kerosene is that exorbitant, what is the fate of a poor person? And if Gary is no more affordable, how about those people that used to do Gary 3/3? You understand? Where do they run to? And if Gary is that expensive, what happened to beans and rice? And what happened to yam? We are scaring the humanity away from the basic needs. And where do they run to? Grave is the best option. And if we keep dying day by day, what makes us feel that we came to a country called Nigeria? To what extent are we bonding? To what extent are we peacefully coexisting? And for what purpose?
So many questions begging for answers, Mr. Supreme Okmon. I want to thank you sincerely for turning up on the matter today. Thank you so much. I believe that these questions will get to the right quarters. And really, for me, I think it's a rhetorical question that needs self-assessment. It's for our leaders to actually ponder on these questions and ask themselves these questions and answer themselves these questions, not actually to the public or to the hearing of anybody. It's just self-assessment. And then I believe if they have those instincts, they're making efforts to actually, drive better living standard for Nigerians. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hey, I look forward to another session with you. It's always been an interesting one.